So we have our reishi mushroom here. This is one of the classical, traditional medicinal mushrooms, and we grow them in the bag for their antler variation. We have two different fruiting rooms here, like our cordyceps. And yeah, these are the mushrooms that we pioneered with here in the US, which we cultivate on our farm now, and work on breeding different strains.
Well, they are beautiful, actually.
Yeah, they look like little Cheetos. And here we have our lion's mane mushrooms, which you can see.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so these mushrooms are highly valued for their neurological benefits. There's a lot of people that are looking at these for benefiting with cognitive health. And in here we also have our oyster mushrooms. So
yeah, I love them. I love them.
Fry them up, super delicious. So yeah, these are the two mushrooms that we grow in this tent, gourmet mushrooms that we rock with. Yeah, this is where we do our microbiology culturing. We have a refrigerator full of cultures that we found around Pennsylvania in our adventures around North America. We do culturing in here, we expand our cultures, we also do extractions of different mushrooms and herbs, and DNA sequencing and barcoding.
Oh, that is actually very compact.
Yeah, it's way smaller than all of the sequencers on the industry. This part is where the flow cell goes, and that's like the size of the other one, and then it just plugs into a computer. But this one has a computer with a touchscreen on it, so I can just do all of the processing on this. Yeah, it processes lots. I mean, I can do whole genome sequencing on this device anywhere, really. So this is the whole thing.
That is really remarkable that such a small machine now, it has enough power to do genome sequencing. Okay, so now we're going to talk about your work and talk about what kind of methods that you actually have been sampling, and your history, and where this company is going, what you want to do in your life, and what kind of wine that you like to drink. So Will, welcome, and could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm William Padilla-Brown, founder and CSO of Mycosymbiotics. Mycosymbiotics is one of my creative projects that we've got going here in Harrisburg, a mushroom farm and ecological research business that I started back in 2015. So as for myself, I'm a 94 model human, raised by loving parents, traveling around the world, really, mostly around the Atlantic, East Coast and Western Europe. Spent time in London whenever I was 8, 9. But yeah, a crazy upbringing led to a lot of understanding and experience with diverse cultures, a lot of influence from my grandfather, who was an English scholar and a professor at Medgar Evers University in Brooklyn, one of the first African-American professors there. He definitely influenced me a lot. I feel like I'm carrying a lot of energy from the old guy.
At Mycosymbiotics, you described yourself as a permaculture systems designer?
Yeah, I'm a permaculture designer. At first, at the base of my career, that's what I am, a permaculture designer. So I like to design whole systems. I work on designing whole systems that are regenerative in their nature, based on natural design, based on mimicking nature. So biomimicry is the tool that I utilize to navigate designing. And Mycosymbiotics is one of the designs, where we offer a mushroom farm for gourmet and medicinal mushroom production, but also as a function for waste diversion and management in our area, for organic materials, hardwood sawdust, grain, brewery waste materials, things like this. We were able to turn those into mushrooms, into compost, capture carbon, put that into the gardens, keep everything happy. So we grow mushrooms there, and we also do ecological research in our lab that we have here at Mycosymbiotics. So to mimic nature, I like to be able to intimately understand it. So it's very important that we have access to this laboratory so that we can bring in different fungi or algae or different plants and things like that we may find in the wild that we want to study further and understand further.
I've been always fascinated by your story, is that you actually learned how to grow cordyceps by watching Thai YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there's a big jump between trying to figure out without understanding the language and like making something happen to writing the first books on cordyceps cultivation in the West. Could you tell us about that process?
Yeah. I originally became very enthralled with the medicinal potentials of different mushrooms, early on, as most people do, but it became even more emphasized in this one evening where I was watching public broadcasting television. It was like the only thing we had at the time. And this infomercial came on for a blender, this magic bullet blender. And there was this guy like, we're going to put, ashwagandha and goji berries and reishi mushroom tea into this smoothie. And I'm just like, what? And I started listening, and it was this guy, David Wolf, and he was like, he's just all over the place, really eclectic kind of guy. But I hadn't really heard anybody talk about medicinal mushrooms in that sense. So like, I went down this rabbit hole on the internet, looking at all these different potentials of mushrooms, and it was like, almost seemed like magical or like fake or something. Like, especially if, like, I don't know, I grew up like Catholic and in military bases, government, very like, has to be real, have to see it and touch it for it to be real type. Like, I didn't know how to really navigate and come to know something on my own.
Scientific materialism.
Yeah. So like, whenever I'm looking at like when I'm looking at this, saying all of these mushrooms can heal all these different things, and I'm coming from this Western world where it's like, people are dying and having to pay $1 million to like have their life back and getting like burns and cuts and radiated and all this kind of stuff to heal these different diseases. And I'm saying like, you can eat a mushroom tea and you don't have to go get through so much pain and suffering. I can't say this does that or this does anything, but like, when anybody can go read the research papers, anybody can go look at the traditional Chinese medicine claims, anybody can go read the research from Thailand where there isn't a pharmaceutical industry keeping you away from saying the things that I wish I could say here in the United States that I'm not allowed to say because I have a company that sells these products. So there's a whole other thing about this, but when I'm reading this, I'm like, how is this a natural thing, and this is what the reality is that we're existing in? So it was like kind of mind-boggling to me that mushrooms could be that potent. So in 2015, I started my first mushroom festival, and we had as many people in the woods as I ever had in the woods with me. And with that many eyes, you'll find new things. And somebody found a cordyceps mushroom growing here in Pennsylvania, and I thought it was something that was like rare in the mountains and Himalayan mountains or something. And when I found it, I immediately was like, if somebody could have Pennsylvania, North American cordyceps mushrooms, they would really value this. I would really value being able to have an abundance of this to interact with. So it just became like a fixation for me.
So cordyceps in mycology world it's my understanding it's more valued.
Very high value.
Tell us more about that. What is cordyceps? Why is it so valued?
In traditional Chinese medicine, it's like top rank, like natural medicine. It's up like reishi, cordyceps. It's up there, like goji berry. Like, it's up there as one of the tops, and it's been valued for so long by a traditional medicinal system that has thousands of years of efficacy, and it's good as an energy tonic. It's good for getting more oxygen into the body. So individuals that, may have, blood cells that may not carry as much oxygen for whatever reasons. There's research out there that says, cordyceps may be able to increase the oxygen in your bloodstream. A lot of people like it because it's aphrodisiac. And it can boost testosterone. So there's a lot of older men that are very interested in it for that. It's been called Himalayan Viagra. And most of the high quality supply of wild cordyceps in Asia goes straight to China, to high paying individuals. I think it's like it's a large percentage of the Tibetan GDP. I don't know everything now with China invading and everything. I don't know what's happened, but there was gang control over cordyceps harvesting regions in the Himalayan mountains. It's been that valuable and that sought after. So there was so many reasons why people wanted to interact with it. If you look up Cordyceps militaris or Cordyceps on Google Scholar or any kind of medicinal or any kind of medicine search engine, you will get so many research papers. I mean, it literally produces adenosine, which you will get in the ER if you have an irregular heartbeat when you arrive. So there's like many different valuable compounds that are being produced in this mushroom. It grows in nature on insects. Here in Pennsylvania, you'll find it on moth pupa, but we've figured out how to grow it on grain-based substrates. So now there's just a big demand because mushrooms are becoming popularized and more people want to find a natural alternative to synthetic degenerative substances that they've been consuming and become dependent on.
So you found this cordyceps. You realized that, okay, well, how is it here? And you wanted to make it. You wanted to grow it on your own. Mm-hmm. And then what do you do?
A friend of mine found the cordyceps and gave it to me at the festival. I always just like to note that these stories are big, and it's not. I didn't make it just here on my own. There's a community of people behind me that I represent every single time I sit down in one of these interviews. I do this for people. I do this for my family. I do this for my community because not all of us have the opportunity for our mission and our energy to be heard on these platforms. So that's why I always mention these kinds of things. So it was a friend of mine, Charlie Aller from Mush Love Mushrooms in Virginia, that found it and gave it to me. I cloned it in my laboratory, and I tried to clone it on as many dishes as I could, Petri dishes. And out of 20 that I tried to attempt, only one worked. And the one that I got, I went on the internet and I said, hey, I have this Cordyceps militaris culture. I went on Google group or on Facebook groups and everything where all the mushroom people were at talking with each other. And I offered it for free for anybody that was interested in working on it. And most people said that I wouldn't be able to do anything with it, and they weren't really interested in it. There was only a couple people that wanted it from me. From there, I corresponded with one of the only people that wanted it, which was Ryan Paul Gates from Terrestrial Fungi in Warren, Michigan. And he had a translated recipe from Dr. Anon, who's a doctor in Thailand. So we had this nutrient recipe. From that culture that I got, we were able to produce fruiting bodies, which is very rare, as we've seen and more experience with it. It's like less than 50% chance that a wild culture is actually going to produce any mushrooms. And the one that we got produced mushrooms, because like I don't even know if the story would have continued if the first one didn't work, because I didn't know where to find them. It took me a while to find them afterwards. It took me like 2 years before I found one myself. I think I found my first one in 2017. Maybe a year after, 2016, I think it was, because I remember I had pictures of it for the first book. But either way, that's when I started going into the YouTube videos. I was working serving tables. Every night I'd come home and just sit on the computer and like search YouTube videos. And it wasn't until I got the attention of some Thai mycologists or Thai mushroom farmers on Facebook that I got invited to different Thai mushroom cultivation groups on Facebook. Because if you go on Google and type in cordyceps and translate it to Thai, the direct translation that they give you is not what they actually call it there. Just like India is not, if you speak in Hindi, it's not, they don't say India. That's not what they call their country. It's like Bharata or something like this. But India is what the Europeans called it. Thailand is not called Thailand. They don't call it Thailand. They don't even say this way. They don't talk that way. They don't even say land. That's not a word that's from their language. So it's like we've imposed these different English things that doesn't always directly translate into the other language. And they call cordyceps, whatever it translates into English, is like gold tank lease or gold tank rental or something like this. So like once I found out how they actually say it, then I found all this other information on the internet. I found all these other YouTube videos. And then that was back when YouTube was still good, before it was all advertisement, and like you could just link to other videos that were similar on the side. and I could just go, like, you have to pay for that feature now, I think. I could just go search all these other videos that would pop up, and I started to find so many different Thai farmers, which it really started booming in like 2010 and on in Thailand, and they had like a lot of like newscaster journalists documentation of the cordyceps production that started to happen there. So I just watched those videos and took what I knew about mycology to kind of, I'm like, oh, that's a petri dish, or all right, they're transferring grain spawn, because I knew just different things that you would do for mycology. So even though I didn't know exactly what recipe it was or the reason behind what they were doing, I kind of like pieced it together that way.
So this grain-based cultivation, does that happen in Thailand, or is it something that you actually developed that is unique to your method of cultivating cordyceps?
They do grain-based cultivation in Thailand. They do different rices and things like this. I've experimented with a lot of different grains, and we utilize brown rice as our standard here. So that wasn't something unique that I brought to the table. But they were using like a lot of baby food and eggs and things like this that I pretty much eliminated out from our recipes that we work with. We do
Why?
all...
Why was that? Why did you eliminate that?
Because the customer base in North America is particularly interested in vegan, soy-free, sugar-free, gluten-free supplements. And if you're going to be offering a supplement product, it's important that you make it approachable for the broadest audience, especially because the people that need to interact with this may be compromised in some way. So we try and make it as much allergen-free as possible. Right after I started cultivating them, like the first time that I was able to get mushrooms to grow, everybody wanted to know how I did it. And I ended up answering a lot of questions on the internet. And I realized that there was a potential to put together a piece of literature to answer these people's questions and be able to potentially make some money for my family. My son was like 2 years old, 2 years old. He was 2 years old when I released my book. And we're still in the same apartment that we've been renting the whole time. And I wanted more for him. I wanted more for our life. And I saw an opportunity. So I just started writing about everything that I was doing. In 2017, January 2017, I self-published the first piece of literature on cultivating Cordyceps militaris mushrooms in English. It's sold in like 20 different countries in the first month, and sold thousands of copies since. It was like an Etsy bestseller. That's where I sold it, at Etsy. Since it evolved into a second volume because I really encouraged a lot of people to grow. I started teaching a lot of people to grow, and I made a Facebook group for cultivators to exchange information with each other. And the techniques very rapidly advanced and developed. So there was just a lot of really new techniques that needed to be brought into it. So that's why I created a volume 2.
That's amazing. So your method, current method, which has been iterated many times, did you source it from other people too? Once you expose this method and then you sort of got feedbacks from them and they have an idea, and did you open source it?
To some extent, because we put a lot of videos on YouTube about how to do it. Other than that, I was selling my book, so it's like $10 to $30 paywall, which I felt was appropriate for building the reality that we're trying to build on. And I think it would be appropriate in any sense, really. I don't really value research papers from universities having paywalls on them, but I do think it's important for independent individuals or communities to be able to, make funds off of their work. So with the videos that we released, that open source, and with any interactions we had on social media and posting about how we're doing what we're doing, a lot of people developed on it, and the techniques just advanced so quickly. So there's a big community of people just interacting with each other now, and sharing strains and breeding different genetics and things.
So you get some idea from the market at large and the response from them. you mentioned magic, right? This is not normal for a lot of scientific people or scientists, especially. And, even though I actually know this example of a ceremonial magician that was a pupil of Aleister Crowley, he was a rocket scientist that self-taught scientist, and he got a job at NASA. And because of him having the background in alchemy, he actually used some alchemical formula, but it's definitely not modern science at the time, right? So he used that formula, he used that information, and then designed a unique rocket fuel. So he solved the problem by looking at this alchemical text, right? So I see you who talks about, magic mushrooms, this is like abundant possibilities that a lot of scientists that I kind of encounter publicly and privately seem to have generally like very sort of, what is it, devoid of any kind of wonder, or it's like very
Very black and white.
yeah, black and white. Also, it seems there's no juice in it, there's no life in it.
I think I don't have as much to lose really as a lot of academic scientists or professional scientists. I didn't go to a college. I don't have a degree to worry about. I'm not working for some institution that I have to like worry about the way I act or what I do, or I've built my whole career on being authentic to myself, and the whole time I've always talked about these kinds of things. And for me, I think that gives me an interesting perspective, because science is only one way of knowing things, and it's not the only way of knowing things. There's other ways, and there's a lot of indigenous ways of knowing things that aren't particularly following the scientific method, but are very efficacious in coming to truths. And what's the best way to gauge it than to interact with reality and see what happens, You
mean to test it?
Yeah, and it's not. It doesn't always have to be, the scientific method. I've seen. It's interesting too, because I think in science being like defined very like in a very reductionist way, it's like it detaches it from magic, but I feel as though science works towards the unknown, or towards the mystery, or towards defining the unknown or the mystery.
But in a very specific way.
In a very specific way. And
it's completely materialistic, meaning that if you can't measure it, might as well, it's not there.
Like, we're basing this scientific methods and procedures on people that standardize these things. We even call the sciences by their names of individuals that standardize certain methodologies or understandings or ideologies. But again, like, I don't have a reputation to uphold with this. Again, like, I don't have as much to lose in that sense. So like, for me to go say like, okay, I believe in magic, no institution is going to like drop me or something like this. And there's so much to explore there. Like, I've seen incredible things in my life from letting myself into circumstances that most people won't let themselves into. I grew up Catholic. Some of the experiences I've had in the past 10 years of my life, I would have never entered into those experiences if I didn't remove the psychological chains that had me believing that I would become, go to hell, be damned to hell. That was really like the ultimate worst thing,
Yeah.
And like, there's multiple occasions, like I'm literally like 17 years old, like tripping on LSD, reading, esoteric literature. And I was like, wow, this is everything that they told me not to do. I might go to hell. And like, just all the shadows of my psychology just started like pouring out, and I was just like, wait. I wouldn't do anything to harm myself. I know better than this. And that's when I started to like really question some of this, because there was like, you know, deep psychological chains that prevented me from interacting with reality in certain ways. And being able to explore those different places, and a lot of those places are like culturally relative to me as an African person, you know, voodoo, black magic, things like this. I've seen incredible things. I've seen people be able to know things.
Tell me more about that. Do you sometimes know things using certain methods that is not scientific at all?
I mean, 100%. All right, so like one of the first times I had a significant experience with lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, that I actually felt like I gained some kind of wisdom or intuition or understanding from it. I was with one of my friends, and we're walking in this little like forest strip in between some homes, and I'm looking at the ground, and it looks like a bunch of patterns to me. And I'm asking my friend, I'm like, what is this? And he's like, you're tripping, you'll see things. And I'm like, but what is it? And he's like, it's just stuff in your head. And I'm like, no, this looks like something. And so I stood there and I looked at the ground for a while, and I said, oh, the leaves and the sticks turn into dirt. I was like 18 years old. I never knew in my mind, I never knew that where dirt came from. I never knew how soil was made. It wasn't anything I ever looked at. I was always in a city. I was always in school. I was always in a building. My parents didn't really do much outside. I played video games. I didn't really go much outside. So like, it was something that was unfamiliar to me. So I didn't know what it was. But through that, I don't think it was a scientific method per se, but through psychedelic hallucinations, I came to know that soil was made of organic debris. And that was the first time. Once I got good at understanding that was a common theme, I was able to see electricity by the time that I was like starting to calm down with it.